So there's a really interesting idea of bringing your emotion in line with your thinking, with your reasoning.
Mm-hmm.
So Ben Shapiro famously has this saying, how you like that transition, Michael? You gave me props. I know you do.
He's not Ben, it's Ben Shapiro.
Yeah.
Someone is not taking your calls.
Benny.
I guess it's the daily don't take the caller.
Back to the island with the murder. I think we know.
Murder Island.
We would know who would be committing the murder. I have the suit for it. So he has this saying of facts don't care about your feelings.
Mm-hmm.
And that always, I've always felt badly about that statement somehow, like it was incomplete. So it's interesting to that you mentioned bringing your emotions in line with your thinking. Like, what do you think about that statement? Is it?
I got this one. What Ben is doing, what he's doing in a loose way is attacking Kantianism. Because Kant, there's this, it's almost impossible for Westerners who aren't schooled in this to understand the idea of philosophical idealism, because it sounds so crazy that you're like, these great minds of all time can't really be saying this. I must be missing something. So the idea of, when we hear idealism, we think John F. Kennedy, right? It's the example, you aspire to things, you think life can be better than it is. That's not what it means in a philosophical sense. In philosophical idealism, it means ideas are more real than reality. That I have this idea, then this comes along, it's the reality that isn't correct. My idea is still correct. A good example of this that you see all the time on the internet is when they refer to Mitt Romney and John McCain as rhinos, Republicans in name only. And it's like, who is more a real Republican? The nominee of the party, the senator, the governor of the party, or some person in your mind who has never existed and there's no evidence for them existing? So what Kant did is he bifurcated reality into what we see around us, the phenomenal world, but then it's inferior. The real world, the noumenal world, we can't access it. Because we have eyes, we only see the thing as it appears, not as it is in itself. And because of this, everything we know is a shadow and is secondary.
And that's Plato, right?
Yeah,
and straight out of Plato.
Right. And the real reality is this realm of ideas. So when Ben is saying facts don't care about your feelings, what he is really saying is reality comes first. Your feelings have to be a response or a reaction to it. You can't say, this is how I feel. This table doesn't care. Yep. You can yell at it all day long. It will still be indifferent to your emotional state because it comes first.
So it's a great statement. I think he's cribbing it from Ayn Rand in a sense. And
I love it. Yes.
I mean, there's a sense in which he is. I mean, who popularized that kind of idea? And Ben has read Ayn Rand quite extensively.
Not enough.
Not enough. Well,
not enough to reference her.
He does wear the yarmulke, so yeah, obviously. He may be read enough but didn't understand enough. So
fired.
It's absolutely reality. Reality is unaffected by your emotional state and your feelings about it. And this is a great claim against the idealism, the philosophical idealism of much of the world out there, both left and right. I think politically, culturally, the left and right are detached from reality. They live in a different dimension, in a different space that they are creating in their own minds that has nothing to do with the real world. And when they fail, they make stuff up to justify their failure. Right, so this is, all of really the ideas that are promulgated today on both sides are this kind of detached from reality. We're putting emotions or ideas before reality itself. But I believe that our emotions are responses. The responses to reality conditioned by our existing concepts.
You're gonna have to talk slowly to talk emotions to Lex because he doesn't really understand what
I
that
don't
is.
understand.
So really, you gotta really.
But he's big on love.
What is love?
But he's big on love.
He's trying to learn.
Pretty big on love. I'm all in. I'm a love maximalist.
I mean, we could create an environment on this island where you would really feel emotions. Like fear is an emotion. We could
that's the metaphysical terror.
We could easily terrorize you to the point where you felt fear, right?
Yeah.
So we could teach him about emotions. But emotions are a response to reality. So some people, for example, you could take 5 different people and show them exactly the same thing, and some of them would feel fear, and some of them would actually feel indifferent, and other people might feel love, right? I think Leonard Peikoff uses the example of looking through a microscope and seeing a I don't know, a virus or bacteria. And for one, it's a scientist. He's made a new discovery. He feels pride and love, and the one has no clue, right? And he's looking at this, and it means nothing to them. And somebody else might look at it, and it's a bacteria, and they feel fear because of what it could do to them. So it's conditioned by what you know, what your values are, and your level of knowledge, and what the thing is out there in reality. And it's that so your emotions respond to that. So aligning your emotions with your reason is making sure that your emotions are really conditioned by what you know explicitly versus what you've internalized implicitly that you might not agree with anymore. Things might happen in your childhood, and they probably do, right? Where you get a trauma. I don't know. I'm afraid of dogs, and maybe when I was a 5-year-old, some dogs jumped me, and I don't even remember it, right? But I came to a conclusion when I was 5: dogs bad, dogs dangerous, right? And now, anytime I see a dog, oh my God, that bringing my emotions aligned with reality, right, with my ideas is no. Now I understand dogs don't have to be scary. I can work through this. And there are various techniques, and hopefully, if there is such a science as psychology, but in psychology to get you to the point where you can get rid of that fear and align your emotion now with your explicit ideas. And that's what I mean by that.
And let me build on that. Talking about your friend Putin, I think I mentioned this before, at least maybe on the show. He was meeting with Angela Merkel.
Vladimir, please.
Yeah, Vlad. My boy Vlad. He was meeting with Angela Merkel. Angela Merkel has a fear of dogs. So he brought out his big Labrador Retriever. Now, for people who don't know, Labradors are very big dogs, but they're also like the least aggressive. It's like you could punch them in the face, they don't care. That dog is not going to be more likely to attack just because she's scared. And it's kind of, I know they say animals can sense fear. Domesticated dogs, if they see you're scared, they're not going to be aggressive. They're going to try to play. I remember when I was a kid, I will never forget, there was this dog, Rex, this German Shepherd. I'm 5. This dog is gigantic. And I'm sitting on the couch. German Shepherds have been bred for intelligence. They're very bright dogs. They're very good with kids. He's sitting next to me. This thing is 3 times my size. He very gently puts his paw on my leg to be like, kid, like he can sense my fear. He's like, I'm not going to do it. Like, I want to be your friend. I'm still freaking out. He licks my hand. It's just very scary. Wow. Animals are so bright. But that's the thing is, in terms of facts don't care about your feelings, that dog is not more likely to attack someone because their emotion is so intense. It's not that I feel something very strongly, therefore this thing is more likely to happen. So my intensity of my emotion does not in any way correlate in when you're being irrational to the likelihood of that thing actually happening.
No, you could have a dog that does respond to your emotion, right? But then it's not. But then that's part of reality, right? That's a fact of reality that certain dogs respond to certain emotions.
But isn't this emotion a part of reality? That's like, okay, let me say a word.
So part of that, I would even say, don't let your emotion about your emotion, right? Because sometimes you have an emotion about your emotion.
Don't be repressed.
Don't be repressed, and identify the emotion as reality, and evaluate it. Don't judge it. Evaluate it. Is it a rational emotion? Is it consistent with like, if I'm afraid of these dogs, if I feel that fear, is it rational to be afraid of these dogs?
But you're speaking to your own individual trajectory as a human being as you grow through the world and try to understand reality and connect yourself through reason to reality. What I'm talking about is a term like lived experience. When you observe and analyze the conversations with other people to try to understand how other people see the world, doesn't emotion fundamentally integrate into that? Like, is an emotion lived experience? So everybody experiences the same reality, but the way they experience it might be very different, and that has to do with what? It doesn't have
with
to do
their
with
values, with their conclusions, with their ideas, with their experiences, with a million different things.
But but
at the end of the day, it's about the conclusions that they come to, which are then shaping their emotions. But look, emotions are not something to be avoided or ignored. That is, I can sense your emotions to some extent.
That's a
lie. Okay, it is Lex. I can sense his emotions. I can sense Michael's emotions, and that's part of the facts of reality, right? So if Michael responds to something that I view as really, really important, right? If we were standing in front of Michelangelo's David, Michael responds to Michelangelo's David was, and turned his back to it and walked away. That would be really meaningful to me, right? that I would respond emotionally to that, and cognitively I would say, what is it about Michael that makes him, respond this way? That gives me a lot of information about him. So emotions are information laden, right? But they are not primary. They are responses to something. So one must be very aware of one's own emotions, recognize them, and analyze them, and one should be aware of other people's emotions if they're important to you. If they're not important to you, it doesn't matter, right? You don't care about a stranger's emotion. Like a stranger walks up to Michelangelo David and says, and walks away, then I go, okay, I'm glad you're a stranger. But it's now I have no idea what Michael's response to Michelangelo's David was or is, so I'm a little worried about what he's going to say.
You got candy too. That was great.
Hey,
do I get Ukrainian?
I thought I was
I don't
special.
know. I can't read either. What's this say, Joshua? What does that say to him?
Yeah, it might
Is
be
this Ukrainian candy as well?
I thought it was sent to me.
Do you know that Atlas Shrugged was the best-selling book in Ukraine in 2015 and 2016?
Do you know Atlas Shrugged was translated to Russian by someone who's now crypto billionaire, and he made 6 copies, and I have one of them, and I sent it to my great grandma.
They're more than 6, but yeah.
Oh, but they were
I have a copy too.
Okay.
Not I personally. The Institute has a copy.
I sent it to my great grandma, and she said, "Why is he sending me this? I want to read books about love." And I'm like, you know what?
It's about love.
Yeah.
That's what you should have said.
What's that? Does that say?
So this says it's содержит витамины и минералы. It has vitamins and minerals. There's a
If
bunch
it's in
of
Russian, I don't believe it. It's just
it just sounds really. It sounds really strange to read health information in Russian.
There you go.
there's-
Exactly.
I'm already
But
distrustful
look,
of it.
there's a Yorshik like you have.
Exactly.
Oh.
I mean, I'm
It's a
much.
Yorshik.
I like
He doesn't
Kiev
mean
much
it.
more than I like Moscow.
Wow, strong words. But this does not. It's like hard candy. I don't know.
I think
don't know.
this. Some of my friends sent me that's made with blood to give the kids iron,
Whose blood?
like cow blood,
Oh,
like with chocolate.
all right,
You can keep it.
That's all you.
all right. I'm keeping
But
both
can
of
I
these.
can I
take all
speak
of
to
the
something you're
gifts.
talking about with
Yeah.
emotion?
Yeah.
Something that is very pernicious in terms of emotion is people denying the validity of their own emotions. And here's one example. Someone could be in an abusive relationship or have had an abusive childhood, and they think, well, I didn't have a black eye. We had dinner on the table. It wasn't abusive, because you hear some other story. So they feel their emotion is invalid. Or like, oh, he never lays hands on me. He gets drunk and is mean to me. He's still basically a good person. You're denying that emotion, and that emotion is a response to something real. There's an expression, I have friends who are in 12-step programs. There's an expression there, which I think is very profound, which is if it's hysterical, it's historical. Meaning if some minor incident is having an extreme disproportionate impact on you, ask yourself, why am I responding in such an extreme way to some minor thing? And I will tell you 10 times out of 10, you'll go back and you'll be like, oh, I'm feeling now like I felt when I was 8. And my dad came home and he was a total jerk and I didn't do anything wrong and he thought I had, and I was completely powerless. And now I'm in the same situation my boss. I'm not that 8-year-old. In one sense I am, in another sense I'm not, but I feel the same way I did as a kid. And this is a very useful mechanism in terms of furthering one's happiness, because you kind of deprogram all those things that you picked up as a child.
But it's also, if you're feeling something wrong, even though you're trying to rationalize in a way, it's not abusive because he's not hitting me. No, the emotion is telling you something real about what's going on. So acknowledge it and fix the situation, right? So one of the powers emotions give you is they send you signals about something that might not be in cognition yet.
Yeah.
And when you examine the emotion, it brings it to cognition.
Yeah.
And now you can act on it. So maybe the boss is abusive.
Yeah.
But I didn't really think of it in those terms. And my emotions is sending me signals. And now that I signal it, I'm going to resign. I'm going to find another job. I'm going to complain to his boss or whatever.
And-
I'm going to take action.